Hey everyone, this is Scrap Computer here. I'm just going to explain the apparently ambiguous term overpowered, or to my fellow geeks, OP. Now I'm going to explain the disgusting use of this word and why it cannot be applied to literally everything in the game. It's getting beyond a joke right now. Everything's OP. That Lux's ultimate is overpowered. Look at its range, it took like half my HP. Yeah, well that's because Lux is 15 kills. That Tryndamere's OP as hell, with 2 hits and I died. Well, yes, because Tryndamere's got free farm and it's late game. What the hell, Fiddlestick's ultimate killed our entire team. You aren't wording and he started channeling right in front of you and no one stopped him, or you knew he was missing before the fight and you still fought. Both scenarios are full of idiots. Here is my definition of literal overpowered, or actual real overpowered. I'm not wiki, so a bunch of rules jumbled together will hopefully form some sort of explanation for me. If a champion has abilities or stats or traits that are far greater than the regular power, either utility or damage wise, and has extremely few if no counterplay mechanics at all, it's overpowered. Anything beyond this is merely strong or very powerful. If you're wretched into picking one or maybe two slight counters that only put you on equal ground versus these guys and have no other options, so you'll get destroyed if you don't pick these limited options, I mean you literally can't do anything to them or they'll wreck you, it's probably overpowered. Now here's some exceeding circumstances that are not overpowered but can lead to a champion seemingly being so. These are what most people get caught up on, and if I'm honest with myself, in season 1 I done the same thing. Generally it's the new players or the players with not much knowledge in the game that kind of get caught up in these things. Number 1, being fed. Now being fed is one of the biggest exceptions that most if not everyone knows. A lot of kills means a lot of gold means a lot of superior items, and that will give you a far advantage beyond anything you can possibly have if you're not fed. It's a simple item advantage that means the champion seems OP by the pure amount of stats and gold it can provide. Number 2, power spikes. A power spike is when a champion gains a huge burst of strength at a certain period in the game. This power peak comes from items or levels. A good example is an AD carry such as Vayne, who's trying to finish Blade of the Rune King. Before she finishes it, it's kind of a substandard item and she's only slightly strong with it. But when she actually finishes Bork, her damage pretty much skyrockets, giving her a power peak. With regards to levels, a power peak is usually ascertained at level 6, but some champions get power spikes at pretty much miscellaneous levels. An example of a power peak is, say, Akali at level 6. Once she gets this level, she becomes crap ton stronger within a massive addition to her burst and ability to use her burst. She gets the dash, the mobility, it's very overbearing in the amount of damage she can possibly pump out. But this wears off if she doesn't get a kill or an advantage, and it does slightly peak off. So that's power peaks. Number 3, they naturally counter you. This may seem like they're OP, this is the one scenario you will be like, oh my gosh, they just OP wrecked me. But this is not the case. Certain champions get countered by others, it's just the way it is. Certain champions are built to mechanically or conceptually counter you in lane. Certain champions are built just to beat you. If they have a counter mechanic to you, they're probably going to win the lane no matter what. An example of this is, say, Teemo versus Tryndamere. Teemo has range, you can auto attack the Tryndamere, the crap in lane, and there's very little he can do. His auto attack range, his melee range is pretty much makes it impossible for him to retaliate in any real way. When Tryndamere tries to attack the Teemo, Teemo can simply blind and beat the crap out of him and back out. Most Tryndameres won't get a single auto attack off on a good Teemo, it's just a complete counter. If he dives in, Teemo's gonna blind him. If he doesn't dive in, Teemo's gonna poke him. No matter what, he's gonna lose. It does not mean Teemo's OP, it just means Tryndamere is completely auto attack based and melee based is just weak against Teemo's blind and range combo. You see? Not OP. Perfect scenarios. Now this is one of the main ones, and many players don't understand. Some champions excel in perfect scenarios. In certain times and places, certain champs can use their mechanics to the max and get a mass advantage. An example starting with a low HP team versus a Katarina. Katarina can hunt them all down with ease, using her resets. People think Katarina is OP when this happens, but she is simply one of the best cleanup crews in the game. It's the whole thing around her kit. If she gets a quadra kill from you all clumping up on low HP, it just means that you probably should have been back, you probably should have went out of the fight when you were too low, and basically speaking, it's just she's good in this scenario. Another example is a Rengar who's teamfighting in a jungle, or just fighting in a jungle in general. He can maximize his damage and outplay potential in the bushes. Fighting a Rengar in the jungle near bushes means he can appear extremely OP, but in fact he has so many bushes to run into and jump out of, he's just strong. It's not that he's OP, it's just he's got a good scenario. The same goes for, say, a Fiddlesticks who gets a perfect ultimate on your team. You let him get that ultimate. It's usually hard to land. You made it easy, you didn't ward, you didn't stop the channel, you didn't acknowledge he was missing, so you deserve to die. A rumble ultimate needs a tight corridor with no one with mobility. You see where I'm going with this. Perfect scenarios can lead to a champion appearing more powerful than they actually are, but it is up to you to stop these perfect scenarios from happening. Number 5. New champions / reworks. This one is pretty much unknown or just not discussed, but is basic when you look at it logically. When a new champion comes out, or if one's been heavily reworked for example, you don't know their new kit and its power, extent, and of course limitations. This means you're lacking the essential experience in the kit and of course experience of playing versus this new / changed champion. You don't have the information to base your matchup versus, so you may under some circumstances over or even underestimate their damage, utility, and it can cost you your lane. This is not OP, it simply means you don't have enough experience to beat them. This usually subsides when you figure out their kit. This will dissipate when you simply get a little bit more experience versus that champion, or hell, even play the champion once. These are all of the exceptions of being OP. I'm going to cover a few champions and why they aren't OP and their counters. All of these champions are considered OP or banned out at some level of the game. Please do note that these are just the counters, and yes, I'm slightly oversimplifying the counter mechanics versus them. Shen. He's got a weak start game, he's crap at wave clearing, he gets countered by lane very heavily by range. Ultimate and roaming too much leads to him losing his top lane turrets, pretty much all of them. If behind, he's next to worthless as he can't split and generally is ineffective. Not great damage output unless fed, he's got long cooldowns in most of his abilities, especially his ultimate. Amumu. He's a bad start game duelist, so campus jungle. He's blue dependent start game, so he's easily invaded. Cleanse is a thing. Disengage counters him extremely heavily. Don't clump up and he can't do anything. Vayne. She's garbage start game, so pick a strong start game carry. She's got a bad escape, and don't tell me Tumble's OP and it's the best escape ever, it's okay at the best. But in a proper teamfight, it's like holding a piece of tissue over your head in the rain, it's pretty much useless. She's only got a moderate range, so she has to be in your face to do damage, unlike a lot of other carries. She's very squishy, just like every AD carry in the game. Frozen Heart, Rando, and Thornmail are all in the game. Vi, she's ultimate dependent. A good escape goes well versus her. Knockbacks, knockups, escapes make her useless if used correctly. If you have decent positioning backline, she can't do very much. Morgana Black Shield and shields in general means Vi will be worthless. Armor does exist. Leona. Usually too aggressive start game and grabs minion aggro, use this to your advantage. Can be poked down, there's no sustain, so poke. Overextends easily, if behind she normally stays there. Morgana's spell shield and spell shields in general mean she's useless. Wear glasses. Ari, weakest start game, a strong mid laner can wreck her. She's got a lot of mana problems in lane. If behind she usually stays there, she's extremely skill shot reliant. Charm reliant for an effective burst usually. Targeted roots and stuns prohibit her mobility very easily, so pick these up and she's gonna die. Sconner, just don't fight near his fountains. You can kite him. Get your frontline to disrupt him very easily. He's got no really hard mobility, so just make sure you can kite him out and keep your range, and there's very little he can do. Lee Sin, he's weak CC besides his kick. If behind he usually stays there, he's weak late game with not really great scalings. He's got an unreliable Q that is easily blocked and avoided in teamfights. Zed, spells have high energy cost, you can't spam them too much. He is item dependent. He's relatively weak during levels 1 to 4. He can be countered in lane. Typically full glass cannon, therefore squishy. GA and revives are a thing, also QSS. Twisted Fate. Ultimate cooldown is really long, he has no hard mobility, can be countered in his mid lane, he's easily ganked, extremely squishy start game and pretty much all game, has low range on his W and his auto attacks, ward counters his roaming potential very heavily, simply stack his lane. Tryndamere, weakest start game, can be countered hard top, has to go all in to do anything if behind usually stays there, not a great team fighter until very late game, has basically no CC. Kha'Zix, weak start game jungle clear so you can counter him. Stay behind your minions and teammates and turrets and you should be fine. CC equals dead insect, silence equals useless. Behind and he is crap, armor is OP. Darius has no mobility at all, is easily ganked, is easily kited, can be countered extremely hard in lane, has mana problems all game, revive counters his ultimate, can be kited very easily, I want to emphasize. Thresh, deny him souls and they have little armor, provides no sustain in lane, so poke. His Q's are relenting and if he misses it, it can be zoned hard. Wards can win the lane, so try it. Spell shields equals useless Thresh. Nasus, weak early and mid game, can be countered easily, gank him early, camp his lane, he holds no true dueling prowess early so constantly duel him, range counters him, hold the lane and zone him if he's ahead, push objectives while he's not helping his team and only farming. Mordekaiser, he has really low range in all of his spells, has no mobility at all, Mord is 0 CC at all, is easily kited, ultimate is countered by revives of any kind. You get the basic drift and I haven't covered absolutely everyone. I could have done this for every champion in the game, but I felt I didn't need to. I just wanted to very quickly cover a couple of champions and their very basic counter mechanics and why they aren't OP. Nothing realistically is OP right now in the current patch I'm on. In the future it might change, but for the most part, Riot is pretty good at balancing, although people give them a lot of slack. There's very few champions that get through and are very overpowered. Now a couple of real examples of OP mechanics that were legit nerfed because they were essentially overpowered. Draven on his first release was OP as hell. His passive dealt 30 plus 4 multiply his level, physical damage over 4 seconds. This not only refreshed, but stacked. So basically, start game, he would make a trade and he would win. If you, no matter what you done, without hitting an ability straight up in the face or your support both fighting him, there was no way you could win. Every auto attack of his was approximately doing around 110 damage. Level 1. That's a little bit too powerful. No lane in the entirety of the game could deal with it. There was literally no counteraction to this. You could not trade him, you had to play extremely passively, and anytime you did make a trade, he instantaneously won. There was pretty much nothing you could do about it. Every time you made a trade, he beat you. Every time you tried to poke him back, he beat you. Every time you tried to all-in him, he beat you. There was no way to counteract this ability. He was simply, because of this tick damage, a lot stronger than every AD carry in the game. A lot of kill lanes, simply put, were not played during his release because they had to trade with the Draven, and you were gonna lose. Agrees went in buckshot and still lost the trade with the Draven, straight up, face up, which is kind of overpowered. There was no counteraction, there was no ability to stop it, there was no champion you could pick. He just won because he was more powerful. This is why it was nerfed to the new passive. Katarina also used to be OP. She actually did used to be a little too strong. The amount of time she had to proc her passive was basically the amount of time she could have received an assist for any amount of effort. Now they've given her a massively shorter time scale to get that reset rather than just giving it on assists. They also took away her nuke potential on her E by lowering its damage. Right now Katarina can only clean up teamfights. I actually think it's heavily balanced currently, but again, it used to be OP. She used to be able to get an assist and clean up a teamfight off 1 assist. Now you've got a 3-second time frame, it's not that much, you have to time yourself perfectly, and they took away her ability just to blow people up, which I totally agree with. Now she hasn't seen as much play because she's now balanced, at least in my opinion. Jinx used to also be OP on her release. She had insane free attack speed ramp stats on her Q minigun, in addition to rockets, and minigun could be switched instantly or almost instantly without much of a delay like we see nowadays. This left very little in terms of counterplay, as she could switch to your guns in a second and get a free auto attack off with a free range increase. So right now what you have to do is you get like a 0.5 to 1 second switch up between the animations, so you can get a lot of counteraction. You can see her range has been increased or decreased and fight her off that. But with her original release, this was changed instantly and you couldn't really react. Lastly, her ultimate was mental. The base damage on her short range cast means she could actually execute as a close range burst tool rather than an actual literal execute tool. So people were using it during close-up teamfights and still winning with it, which is just, in my opinion, unacceptable. Golems in the bot lane used to be a massive thing as well. Basically, back a couple of seasons ago, you used to be able to get the golems early in your bot lane, and after that you go into lane with a level advantage and pretty much win. This is still possible now, but back then the golems spawned at 1 minute 40, or at least around that, and so what happened was people could actually get the golems and walk into lane very easily with no missed minions like you do nowadays, and get their level 2 for absolute free. This meant they had a level advantage, and every single time bot lane on the blue side always won, because the red side couldn't do it because there was no camp there at the time. So basically, it's a massive counter. Now, Riot removed this by making it spawn at 155, like all the other camps, and so basically you can't take it anymore, which is absolutely fabulous in my opinion, because there was no counterplay. How could you fight them when they got their level 2 early and you had no way of getting your own camp? You couldn't. Most people tend to see the overpowered on a spectrum like this: weak, balanced, powerful, overpowered. I personally feel this is the correct spectrum. Most champions, who they're balanced, are powerful, but there's very few in the game even currently right now that are overpowered. There's very few champions that give you a lot of stats and a lot of damage and a lot of free kills for absolutely nothing or very little skill. Currently speaking right now, again this example will probably be mute later on, is the Juggernauts Garen and Darius are extremely powerful right now. They basically all in and win every time, and there's very little way of beating them, besides of course going for a ranged champion to bully them in lane. And even then, most people aren't happy about doing this. So right now, I think it's not too bad. Besides the exceptions top lane and the juggernauts, I feel we're in a pretty good position right now. I've wanted to cover this video for a very long time. I actually scripted this 2 years ago and I never had the chance to complete it, but thankfully I've got it done now, which I'm really happy about. I hope you like it, guys. If you like it, dislike it, dislike it. If you like the content, subscribe, or if you think I'm completely wrong and everything's OP, you can unsub. I'm totally fair. Besides that, guys, as always, have a great day and best of luck in the Rift.